So if you had to describe shooting as a sport, how would you describe this sport to them?
So I think shooting is more a way of life. Honestly, it's if I simply put it, it's like it's very easy to sing in the bathroom, but it's not easy to sing in front of a crowd.
So tell me, when you fired a shot that won you the medal, did you realize that that shot would win you the medal?
No, I found out later because, like I said, there are so many competitors competing
Yeah.
at the same time. I just knew that I have done very well, and this is right.
So what happens to a shooter, say, who comes fourth in every competition?
Nothing. So you don't get anything.
Why does India not bring home as many medals as some of the other countries?
The answer is going to shock you.
Welcome to another edition of the Bombay Founders Club talk show. Today we are very, very honored to have a very special guest with us. He is none other than Ronak Pandit, who has been the head coach of the Paris 24 Olympics for the shooting team. He's coached prodigies such as Hina Sidhu, who happens to be his wife, and Manu Bhaker, who has made history by winning one of the first few gold medals by women in shooting. Ronak himself has been a Commonwealth and Asian Games gold medalist. He comes from a shooting background. We often refer to him as shooting royalty in India. And this is a very, very special podcast for me personally because I have learnt so much from Ronak. In fact, I go to his range every weekend to practice shooting, and it's a sport that I've fallen in love with. So Ronak, thank you so much for having us here. And I'm sure I've missed out quite a bit in the introduction. So feel free to fill up anything else that I may have missed.
No, the pleasure is all mine to be here, and it's like in sport we believe you're as good as your last shot. So we will not go to my past achievements. We'll stick to the moment right now. Present is the most important moment. So
That's lovely to hear. Okay. So, Ronak, let's dive right in. Right. So, at 21, you became, a medalist on the international stage. You won your Commonwealth and Asian Games medals. How does it feel at that young of an age to be kind of at the pinnacle of the sport?
So in fact, at 21, I won the two most major medals of my career. But the first international medal that I had won was before I had turned 15.
Oh, wow.
And I was a senior national champion before I turned 15. At 13, I had become the junior national champion just 6 months into picking up the sport. And it's funny how I even picked up the sport. I mean, it wasn't even on my agenda. Like I never thought I would be a shooter. Like you generally it happens that you ask people and they say, "Oh, bachpan se mera, this was my dream, and I always wanted to be this, and that's what I've reached." And in my case, until 6 months ago, I was not even considering this as an option. And suddenly here I am as a junior national champion with the new national record in my first national championships itself. So it's funny how this happened, and it was just it was one of our summer holidays, and my dad had some work at the shooting range, and my dad is a very, very famous one of the, I think someone who put Indian shooting on the global map. The first gold medal won by India in this sport was by him in the 1990 Commonwealth Games. And so he had some work at the shooting range, and on our way from home to Mahabaleshwar for the holiday, we just stopped by at the range, and it happened to take more than usual amount of time. So as a kid, I was getting a little impatient in the car. So then somebody at the range just told me, "Hey, there's a competition going on. Why don't you just participate?" And I was always open to competing. I just loved competing. It didn't matter whether I won or lost. It was just the whole idea of competing. Was just always charged me up. So I said, yeah, why not? Okay, let's do this. So my mother and brother, they are just waiting in the office. I go and I just fill myself into that competition. Yeah, we finished the competition. It took about an hour or so, and then we left for the holiday. And at night, my dad gets a call from the federation saying that, hey, this was not a good thing you all did. Why did Ronak leave? He should have stayed back for the prize distribution. And he said, "Arey, but why? Just for time pass sake, we entered the competition. We were already on a holiday." But he won the gold. And how could how did the podium look with the gold medalist not there? And then my dad told me he won the gold, and I was like, he's joking, but
So how do you win a gold without any preparation? Did it come that instinctively to you?
so it's not that I see, it's like this, everyone, all of us know how to play cricket. Like we all know how to hold a bat, and okay, maybe you're pretty good at gully cricket, but how does that? How do you objectively measure that?
Ronak, as a kid, who were you going around shooting that you had
No, no,
this
no.
practice in the gullies of Mumbai?
No, but see, once a month or so, I would accompany my dad at the shooting range, right? And then I just knew how to shoot, and there was also a 10-meter makeshift range at home, and I did some fun shooting here or there at types, but competitively it was the first time I didn't even know what the rules of the competition were, so it just happened. But I think more important, sometimes I feel more important than getting your basics right and the technique and all those things, it's just your will to compete. You just got to be a fighter. So
That's very interesting. So, Ronak, a lot of our listeners and our audience may have never actually held a gun. Most of them would have never actually been to a shooting range. Even the sport of shooting is not as watched as cricket
Yeah.
is in India, unfortunately. So, if you had to describe shooting as a sport for someone who's never watched it and probably just heard about, Abhinav Bindra or Hina Sidhu or Manu Bhaker, how would you describe this sport to them?
So, I think shooting is more a way of life. Honestly, it's you, the person, deep down who you are comes out to the fore in shooting, because it's a mental sport. There's a physical element to it. You're standing still and you're holding the gun still and you're pressing the trigger without disturbing yourself, and all of those things. The technical part is there, but it's like, if I simply put it, it's like, it's very easy to sing in the bathroom, but it's not easy to sing in front of a crowd, right? So when you are actually shooting and competing, you are everything that's going on inside you gets exposed. So the slightest of the thought is going to disturb that stability, because it's not about you hitting your target or not. The bullseye is so small. The bullseye is 11.5 millimeter at the distance of 10 meters.
Wow.
So imagine it's like your thumbnail that you're supposed to hit at 34 feet away, and that you're supposed to hit almost 100% of the times, with all the distractions, with all the noise around you, with your competitors around you, with all the thoughts going on in your head, and in that, to be able to maintain that sort of stability, each part of your life and your being has to be in sync, has to be honest, there has to be integrity, all of those things. So that's why I say shooting is a way of life.
Very interesting. So, step by step, Ronak, for an absolute layperson, now you're shooting for gold at the Commonwealth Games, right? You emerge from wherever you emerge. Step by step, what does that process look like?
So as in how I enter a competition, what the competition
Yeah,
looks
no,
like?
so you've reached the final round. You're shooting for gold now.
Yeah.
So how does that round really work from an athlete's perspective?
So from an athlete's perspective, the whole idea is to keep it like any other normal shot. So you've trained to execute your skill under any circumstances. The circumstance changes for the jury, for the organizers of the competition, but for you it remains the same, because it's the same target, it's the same gun, it's the same it's the same process. Whether it's the Olympic Games or the state championships or the final round or the qualification round, for you the process remains the same. The challenge is how do you bring down the process to being the same, and not getting distracted by the magnanimity of the event, and not getting distracted by it.
Correct. But if I wanted somebody who's listening to you today, visualize your mind
So
in that
yeah,
moment.
so what we do is, before we go on to the firing line, that's what we call, like, so like how you say, the ground. So before we go to the firing line, we are putting in a lot of effort to self-talk, to breathe, to calm ourselves down. But how do you calm yourself down? It's giving yourself different perspectives of how this is just another day in office, sort of a thing. So there's a lot of self-talk, there's a lot of breathing, there's a lot of other exercises, different kind of visualizations that are going on, to calm yourself down, and also to get into a performance state. So everybody, like you say, you got to get into the zone. So everybody has a different kind of a zone. For example, for me, my zone was a feeling of depression. If I felt depressed, if I felt the world is all grey and gloomy, and if I do well, I don't do well, it makes no difference, and all those things. So that just sort of made my nerves absolutely still. There's the whole excitement is gone, and now you're back to following the process for the purity of it. So that for me, that state of depression was a performance state. So I would consciously get into that state, which is a performance state. And performance state is something which is your emotional and mental state, which puts you in the best position to perform. So I'm supposed to execute my physical technique, but for that I need to get into a mental performance state. Then you've already trained enough that the technique will flow. So you do that, and then once you're into that state, and then you start preparing. You ensure that your body is still. You've done enough warm up and the stability exercises to ensure that your body is still, and then you do your dry fire training where your arm is still and you're triggering coordination and all that is taking place. And in your mind, you start visualizing that you're actually on the firing line and how you're going to be able to how you're going to shoot the shot. So before you go on the firing line, an hour before that, you're doing you're getting into the performance state and doing those rehearsals against a plain wall, because our preparation area does not allow us to put up a target and things like that.
Oh wow.
So against a plain wall, you're just visualizing, rehearsing, actually doing it. And then once you enter the field of play, once you enter the final hall, where you have all these cameras and lights, and you're being recorded live on television, and all of that. And then there will sometimes in the major games there'll also be the sports minister or some other top politician or bureaucrat who's going to be there watching who's come to watch your event. And the whole and for you're in a bubble. You don't know who's there. You don't want to know who's there. And you also have to take into account that there will be people who will come in, especially in a place like India. People don't really understand performance and the science behind performance. So while you are going to your field of play, you would actually have someone from your team coming and saying, hey, the sports minister has come to meet you and he wants to wish you the best before you go into the competition. That's the last thing you want to do. But then how does that guy say no to him, and then how do you say no to him?
Correct.
But then you got to hold your own. And now that you got disturbed, now you know that the sports minister is there sitting in the stands and cheering for you. How do you forget this?
Yeah.
So,
and how long do you stay in this performance zone once you do get there?
Ideally, we would want to stay from the moment you set foot into the field of play till you get out. But you are never, you're never in the performance state all that while. So you will, you get into the zone, you get out of the zone, you get in, you get out. So there's a constant in out that keeps happening. You just got to train to be in the zone for as long as possible. And if you get out, and if you get snapped out of the zone, then how quickly you get back into the zone. Sometimes, no matter what you do, you are never able to get into the zone. So then you are in conscious control, and you need to have taken all these factors into account and trained for it.
Wow. Yeah, that I think from what I'm garnering, that this is a sport where it's a lot more about the mental competency, getting in the zone, and your mental strength than just technique. And that I think it's quite different from a lot of other sports. Like how would you compare shooting to cricket? Because I know you're quite a big cricket fan as well.
Yeah. So it's a big difference. The major difference is that shooting is the cricket is like a versus game. Finally there are two teams playing, and there are a lot of lifelines that you get. You may hit the lousiest shot of your life, but the guy ends up dropping that catch.
Yeah.
Lousy shot, very easy, lousy catch, but that guy ends up dropping it. You got a lifeline. And then you might go on to make a century and win the match for your team. In shooting, that doesn't happen. So whether it's cricket or tennis or badminton or table tennis or any of these sports, all that you have to do is be better than the competitor in that moment. On that day, you're having a bad day, he's having a worse day, you're still done. You're sorted.
Correct.
But in shooting, what happens is, say in the World Championships, you would have 200 participants. You have 200 odd countries, about 150, 180 of them shoot. So you have probably 160, 180 countries, shooters from 160, 180 countries competing. And you can also have up to 3 shooters from a country which form the team. So you're looking at above 200 participants for sure.
Wow.
and all of them shoot at once. So now the probability of those 199 or 200 or 250 people having a day worse than you
Yeah.
is negligible. So you got to make sure that you are on your A game every time. So it's very ruthless. And there have been times where you've broken the national record, where you have where you performed your personal best, and still you come back without a medal. And how to
Yeah.
live with that? So that's very difficult. Plus, because shooting is a mental sport, there's a lot of, you're constantly controlling your adrenaline and your hormones and all of those things. You're controlling the excitement. You're always trying to just stay absolutely unaffected by anything.
Oh, wow.
So yeah.
So tell me, when you fired a shot that won you the medal, did you realize that that shot would win you the medal, or did you find out later?
No, I found out later. Because like I said, there are so many competitors competing
Yeah.
at the same time. I just knew that I have done very well, and this is definitely a very good performance, and I should
Yeah.
be in the top somewhere. Now, whether it's a gold or whether you're fifth or whatever, that you
Yeah.
can't really know. But yeah.
So
turned
what
out-
was that feeling that, the first thought that came to your mind when you heard that you won gold?
I think that is always first sign. First feeling is always that of relief.
Relief.
That oof, that it
Okay.
all that hard work and all that effort and all that struggle paid off. It's not easy, whether it's cricket, whether it's all the more in
Yeah.
sport like cricket and tennis, but also in shooting it's not easy. See, all that you see is the fluent performance, that fantastic execution of technique which looks so easy,
Yeah.
and the person winning the gold, and as if it was a bed of roses, and life was also good for this person.
Yeah.
But the reason you are seeing this sublime performance is because of the hard work that person has put in for years, for
Correct.
hours at end. And that is what you don't see, and that is why when the person doesn't perform well, people don't take a second, don't hesitate before just pulling the person down and saying he's distracted and this and that, because they don't see the effort that goes behind a performance. And then if the performance turns out well, great, and you're like, thank God, because there's no guarantee. Sport is
Yeah.
not perfect science. It's not 2 plus 2 is 4 and 3 plus 3 is 6. It doesn't work like that. Sport, after a point, becomes art.
Very interesting that you say sport is more like art. Do you mind elaborating on that? Because from a layperson's perspective, it seems like, okay, if I'm 0.1 millimeter or 0.2 millimeter away from the bullseye, I kind of, have gotten the medal or I've gotten where I want to be. So where does the art element really come in?
So see, it's because the technique is a flow of actions, is a flow of so many physical actions, all right? And these physical actions also depend on your mental state and what you're feeling, what
Yeah.
you're thinking, what you had to eat that day, and all of these things at some decimal level play a role to what the eventual outcome is going to be.
Correct.
What perspective you're taking at that time. So all of these things make a huge difference to your performance. So, and all that you need is the right combination of all of that. And it's not that every time you have the same combination. On every shot you'll have a different combination, but the combination needs to be good enough.
Correct.
And getting that combination right is art. It's based on your feeling. All right.
Wow.
It's like, explain to me how in a World Cup someone as great as Sachin or Kohli or Dhoni or whoever ends
Yeah.
up getting out on a duck.
That's true. Very
Right.
true. That's also, I guess, some of the thrill of sport.
Yeah.
In a way. That's what makes sport so exciting.
That is the pressure, no? When you give to go in,
Yeah.
when you go to give an exam and you've studied, you still don't know what questions going to come in the
Yeah.
question paper, and that's what gives you those butterflies. So no matter how much you've prepared and all those things, you still don't know how eventually it's going to turn out.
This brings me to my next question, which is, I was watching some Olympic clips of some of the shooters shooting, and I think one of the top shooters in the world, I believe she's Serbian. When I saw her shoot, and I think they won a medal as well, she did not exactly look like what I would imagine a sports person to look like at the Olympic level, right? In that sense, she was
Yeah.
fairly healthy and not what you'd expect,
Yeah.
right? So how do you explain that in a sport such as shooting?
So I know who you're talking about, Zorana Aronovich. He's a good
Yeah.
friend, and so
Oh,
see,
wow.
you got to be sport specific fit. All right, you're not there for modeling. I mean, if you were there for XXL size modeling, they would probably need to do that, right?
Yeah.
But she's sport specific fit. She has the muscles to hold the gun steady under pressure. She has the mental skills to ensure that she stays still under pressure. It's sport specific
Yeah.
requirements. Not everybody has to have, like, we don't need to run 100 meters in 10
Correct.
seconds, right? We don't need
Correct.
to run 25-kilometer marathons. We don't need to swim 5 kilometers. So for us, fitness is very different. All that we need is the ability to stand still for hours at end. We need the ability to hold a 1 kg gun rock steady 250 times back to back without our muscles getting fatigued. And we need to, while we are doing that, we also need to make sure that for those 20-30 seconds of each shot, we are able to completely zone out from the world and just stay in ourselves. So as long as you're able to do that, it's all good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Also, I think this particular shooter went viral at the 24 Olympics, and I believe you were there. Right? I think he won silver without any of the fancy gear.
Yeah. Yusuf, yeah.
Yes, Yusuf. So, what do you make of his performance? How would you explain that to the rest of the world?
So Yusuf was also an active athlete when I was competing at the world level.
Oh, wow.
So I have competed with him, against him. We've had so many conversations.
Yeah.
But I think none of us ever thought he would become so famous for something other than his skill. So
But even that time, would he not wear the gear, etc.? Or did he wear the gear that time?
Yeah,
This is always how he shot.
and apart from him, there are so many shooters who don't wear such gear, and there are shooters in India
Okay.
who don't wear those fancy gears, because see, the gear has a purpose. When you are aiming and you're looking at the sights
Yeah.
with your both the eyes open, most people will see double vision.
Yeah.
Right? So when you want to look at something, you want to shut one eye. Now, some people are able to see one vision, like, so there's a master eye, there's a dominant eye. So when they want to look at something, the dominant eye already, like, automatically probably comes in the play, and the other eye doesn't interfere because of whatever reason. They're able to see one vision. So why unnecessarily spend money on getting glasses when you don't need? What is the purpose of our shooting glasses? It's
Yeah.
basically just to have an occluder here to block vision from one eye, because if you shut one eye,
Correct.
it's going to tire out your face, because it uses more muscles when
Yeah.
you do this. Even the vision in this eye, the eye shrinks, so it's not as comfortable, not as efficient, optimum, I would say.
Now, that's very interesting. I did not know that there were shooters in India
Yeah,
who
yeah.
also did this. So that's something I think very interesting. I think it's time for us to celebrate some of those
Yeah.
athletes, especially after what Turkey's been doing
Yeah.
for the past few weeks.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you that I know you left your shooting career fairly early to transition to be, on the coaching side. So what led you to do that, and what was the thought process at the time for you?
Yeah, so I was 24 years old, where actually not 24, at around 22, 23, the thought started kicking in. And at 24, I retired from active training in competitions. See, I'm born and brought up in Mumbai. And it's one of the most expensive places now on the planet to live. And I've been well educated in college, and then I saw my friends getting campus placements and getting on with their lives. And what happens in sport, there is a lot of uncertainty. And we are talking of the early 2000s. Sport wasn't as important as it is today. Like, in this government, they are actually giving sport a lot of importance, and they have an agenda of becoming a sport superpower in the world. And that is why there is this government will, right, to do this. Back in the day, that wasn't the case. So the medal that I won in 2006, the Commonwealth and Asian Games medals, it's only when you win a medal do you get a prize money from the government. That's the only way you make
wow.
money. All right?
So what happens to a shooter, say, who comes fourth in every competition?
Nothing. So you don't get anything. So I'll come to that. I'll explain how sport is so cruel.
Yeah.
And so the 2006, so basically, you put in all the effort, you put in your time, your energy, resources, um, and you do well, you win a medal, and only if you win a medal in certain recognized competitions, not all. And coming from Mumbai, state of Maharashtra, had one of the worst sports policies ever. It's only in the last few years that they have woken up and become at par with other states. But there was no sports policy. So for all the national championship medals that I've won, for the dozens of national games medals that I've won, um, I got no compensation or anything of that sort.
Oh.
For the dozens of junior international medals that I won, I got compensated from the central government because central government had a sports policy. But the senior medals that I won, central government would uh, give me my cash award as per their policy, but nothing from Maharashtra. Like I had not received anything from Maharashtra. I think back in those days, I'm talking of the early 2000s, and you can imagine even the early 2000s is not 1950s,
Yeah.
right? For a national games gold, the prize money was 10,000 rupees. For a silver, it was 7,000 rupees, and for a bronze, it was 5,000 rupees. And national games happen every alternate year. So imagine every alternate year you win a gold medal, you get 10,000 rupees. That's like 800 bucks a month.
But how does that make the sport feasible?
So it didn't, and that is why India was so bad at sports earlier. It's also because of this that there was no need for people to pick up the sport. So even when I won my Commonwealth Games and Asian Games medal, I got the money from the central government 2 years after I'd won the. Just imagine the interest cost for those 2 years, and you don't get paid with interest. You're just thank God at least they paid.
Yeah.
So that is what started troubling me. That
How much did they pay you for the Commonwealth and Asian Games medal,
so
if you don't
at
mind
that
sharing?
time, at that time, the policy was, I think, 10 lakhs for a gold, 7 for a silver, 5 for a bronze. It was 10, 7, 5. So even that's not some handsome amount. In 2006, if you're making 10 lakhs for a competition that happens once in 4 years, it getting reduced to 2.5 lakhs a year, which comes down to 20,000 a month.
Wow.
Right? So when you hear stories of people selling Maggie on after winning so
Yeah.
many medals, these are true stories. But again, the fault lies with them, and we'll touch those points also. And it's not that I, unlike others, I took a stand. I mean, I wrote a letter to the government, and the government knew me. It's not like Maharashtra has 5,000 Commonwealth
Yeah.
and Asian Games gold medalists, all right. So I was one of the few which the state had. The state sports machinery knew me by name, and I wrote a polite letter to them saying that these are my achievements in the past so many years, and had I been born in Haryana, Punjab, or Tamil Nadu, this is the prize money that I would have made, and the prize money ranged from 1.2 to 3 crores,
Oh, wow.
right? And what I had received from Maharashtra was about something like 48,000. You see the you see the difference.
So weren't you ever tempted to move out of Maharashtra to one of these states?
Yes, but what happens is it's difficult for an athlete. See, imagine it's like this. Today, if India is giving you 1 lakh rupee for winning an Olympic gold, and if America says I'll give you 1 crore for winning an Olympic gold, but you're still Indian at heart, right?
Yeah.
So it's not easy to take
But I mean,
those
you're still
calls.
representing India at the international games, right? Whether
Yeah,
it's
but
from
then
Punjab or
I'm from Mumbai. I'm from
Yeah.
Maharashtra, and why should I? What instead of just shifting my base, what I should do is I should tell the government, say I'm an educated guy.
Yeah.
I should tell the government that this is where the discrepancy is. This is Maharashtra. This is Mumbai. You're making half of the country's wealth here, and how can we not have a sports policy? So I wrote to the government. I gave them a comparative analysis of all this, and I told them that it's a time to do this, and this needs to change. I did not receive a reply from the government of Maharashtra. Not even a reply. Not even saying that okay, thanks
Till
for
date?
bringing this, thanks for bringing this up, and we will look into it. And then they would not do something with another. Nobody bothered replying. And these are all
Wow.
people who had personally met me after my Commonwealth Games and Asian Games medals. I got no reply from the government. So that's how my motivation started to come down. That you see yourself as a very able person who could do whatever he wants with his life, but he's whiling away his time and energy in sport, and he's so good at sport, but still not getting any returns out of it. Whereas your friends are moving on with their lives. So the motivation went down. Once the motivation goes down, your effort and your quality of training goes down, and results came down. So then that is how I thought of moving out. And then what happened was very, very strange at that time. So I'd done my 10th boards, state board. Right, at that time, I'm a state board student. I did pretty well. I think I was about 97% in my math science this thing
Oh,
in
wow.
the state board. So I got admission in a
While preparing for shooting and
yeah,
training.
I was already junior. I was already junior Asian champion and all those things with all this. In 12th, so obviously after that, so what the idea at that time, life was quite easy at that time, quite simple.
Okay.
If you got 90%, around 90%, you would go for science. If you got 80 and above, you would go for commerce. And below 80, matlab arts. It was a unwritten law. That's what society did.
Yeah.
So of course I did well, and I went to, and over time Ruparel College used to be very good for science. Like all the toppers came out of Ruparel College. So I went to Ruparel College, but I saw the infrastructure. I was like, "Nahi boss, this is not the place for me. I can't survive here." So finally I took the decision of going ahead with Jai Hind College. So I did my FYJC and SYJC in science from Jai Hind College, and I think Jai Hind College was very, very supportive, and a lot of my academic achievements and sport achievements is thanks to the director of Jai Hind College, who was so forthcoming. I think
Oh,
Dilip
wow.
Mirchandani, I remember his name. He was so forthcoming. He was so supportive, and it's due to people like him that
That's so lovely to hear.
yeah, it was just great. And but what happened was, because I was traveling so much till 10th, it's a different scene. But 11th, 12th requires you to attend and understand those subjects, because now the subject is a lot more difficult and all. The first time I started studying for my 12th boards was in end of Jan, like just a month and a half before my, not even month and a half, just barely a month before my boards. And I
Wow.
thought just at 10th I pulled it off. I'm going to do the same. No, 12th was a different ball game altogether. I barely passed with some 55%
Oh,
in
wow.
my 12th boards. Fortunately, BMS was a new course that had come in at that time,
Okay.
Bachelor's of Management
Yeah.
Studies.
Yeah.
And all that it required was you to have above 50% in your HSC, and there was a entrance exam for that. Now the date of that entrance exam was while I was in Germany for my junior international competition, which now is called the Junior World Cup.
Okay.
That same competition. So I was in Germany. I shot one event. I won the bronze in that event. I flew back, appeared for my entrance exam. So I reached here. Flights land at
Yeah.
post midnight. So I
Correct.
landed post midnight, reached home early in the morning, slept for a couple of hours, went to give my entrance exam.
Wow.
Same night, took the flight back to Germany, and that next day I won the gold medal. And I did pretty
Wow.
well in my entrance exam. So, and Jai Hind was one of the best
Yeah.
colleges, top 5 also at that time for BMS. So I continued my graduation in Jai Hind College in BMS. Around that time, there was also this court case that my father had filed against one of the airlines, Air France, because they had mishandled my baggage when I was 16-year-old traveling in Europe for a competition. In spite of all the checks and the torture that they make us go through during our check-in process when we are carrying our equipment, which are guns, they're equipment for us.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of checks, and we adhere to it, we follow it. And after that, they ended up mishandling, like they lost my baggage, and for 7 days they had no clue where on planet it is.
Oh God.
And then after 6-7 days, we got information saying that the bag had reached Bangkok, and now it is being gotten back to Mumbai. And obviously my father on my behalf, I was 16 at that time, so he wrote a letter to the Air France saying that this is gross deficiency in service, and this is not expected after all the 2 hours of extra documentation processes that you all make us go through at the airport. This is not what is expected out of you. I think all that we wanted was an apology from them, saying that we're really sorry that this happened. Instead of apology, what Air France ended up doing was they were arrogant enough to say, what's the big deal? 15 million bags are handled by us every day, so what, one bag got mishandled? No big deal. Now, because I was under 18, I couldn't have fought it. And anyways, I think for whatever reason, it kept lying there. And when it came, when the case actually came on board, I'd crossed 18. So
Yeah.
now, and consumer court allows you to fight your own cases. My dad said, "Arey, remember this is that happened, and this is what we had done, and now this has come on board. Just go fight it." And for me, initially it was like, "Yeah, arey, now what? It's
Yeah.
done and dusted. Jane
Yeah.
do. He said, no, we have to do this. I said, okay. And so I went to the consumer court. I gave them the whatever as per their requirements. A lot of back and forth documentation that happens, and then all
The
those
double
things.
space, the formatting.
Yeah, oh, arey, my God. And it's so, I don't understand why this drama.
Yeah.
You want to know what happened to me. I am letting you know what happened to me in a language which you understand. Now, how does it matter whether it has to be 1.5 spacing and instead of an A4 paper, why does it have to be on legal paper and all that nonsense? I mean, it's really just making life.
Yeah.
I think you're a lawyer, probably you will.
I was a lawyer, but I mean, they have improved a lot since then. Now
Thankfully.
they've gone from legal to A4 in a lot of courts.
Okay,
so
great.
That's one thing enough.
So I went through all of this,
Yeah.
did it completely single-handedly on my own. There was one friend of mine who was studying law at that time from Bangalore, Nalsar. I think Bangalore.
Nalsar is Hyderabad.
Hyderabad.
That's
So
where I studied.
Bangalore.
Bangalore is NLS.
NLS. So he was doing his LLB from Bangalore, and he was guiding me, helping me in this. And when the case came on board and we had to argue, senior counsel for Air France, of course, it's not going to be any Tom, Dick, and Harry, right? He flew down from Delhi, from one of very reputed firms. And I remember his thing was, it is a complete waste of my time. The firm is making us pay. The firm is spending on a business class ticket for me, and they make me stay in this 5-star hotel and this and that. And cases like this is just a waste of resources of the airline and all those things. So he just tried to intimidate me and the judge at the same time of the consumer court. But eventually, what happened was, obviously we fought, we did arguments, and then the judge told him that I'm giving you 15 minutes to settle it out of court, or I'll be giving my judgment. That was a hint to him that you lost it, figure it out. And then when we got out of the court, this guy, he said, hey, no personal feelings. It was all professional. This is my card. If you ever wish to pursue law, please get in touch with us.
Oh wow!
So that's.
Did he know that you were a world-class athlete at the time?
Of course. I mean, I told them, right, who I was and where I was going and how important that bag and equipment was for me. But at that time, it didn't matter to them. So through BMS.
Before that, what did Air France settle for? Now I'm curious. In those 15 minutes, what was the settlement that they offered you?
So they offered me, I think it was, if my memory serves me right, again, I could be wrong, and I think nobody should hold me responsible for this, but it was, I think something like a 50K cash compensation and 2 tickets also. And I told them that, listen, after this kind of experience, I don't want
I hope they
your
were
2
at least
tickets.
business class tickets.
No, they weren't business class tickets for sure. And I think what I told them was, listen, but after this kind of service that I don't think I ever want to fly Air France. You rather increase the compensation amount, the cash compensation. So, but yeah, it was, I think in 2003-04, when the Maharashtra government was giving me 10,000 rupees for a gold, this was a battle well fought,
Fair. Fair.
So yeah, I did law and all those things, but then because the heart was in the sport and with the management background and all, I thought let's start coaching, because I know the skills, I have the ability to articulate and communicate. And when I was training, I saw a lot of youngsters, middle-aged people, elderly people, professionals who would come to the range and who were pursuing the sport as a hobby, but they were doing it all wrong because there was no one to teach them, right? So, and because I was very focused on my own sport and my training, I never bothered to train them. That was not my job.
Correct.
But I always saw that gap, and I thought, okay, let's fix this gap and can make money for me,
So how would you train as a shooter then without a
So
coach?
the government would call foreign coaches. So foreign coach would come for a training camp 2-3 times in a year and would leave.
Okay, and then otherwise it was all by yourself.
Yeah, all by yourself.
Oh wow.
Completely by yourself.
Yeah.
So I said, so they said, it just won't work, because people want to come and want to shoot. Why will they pay extra money for coaching? Because what are they going to get eventually out of it?
Yeah.
It's not like ye karne se and then they'll be part of the team and they might get this job, that job, or they'll make this money. So then they will consider it as an investment. Otherwise, why will they do it? I said, no. If I keep the price right, and if I'm able to communicate to them that how learning the sport correctly will enhance your experience of the sport. So it's like if you are going to spend $100 on training, for an example, let's say in your 1 year of shooting life, you end up spending $100 and get nothing out of it except confusion. And on some days you're doing well, you don't know why. On some days you're doing poorly, you don't know why. So you don't get the satisfaction, you don't get the kick, you don't get the joy,
Yeah.
right? But if I charge them $125, and if they get the experience out of it,
Yeah.
and if they understand exactly what's happening, it's like then it's a journey of self discovery and improvement and then all of those things. Then I thought it's better to spend 125 rupees and get something out of it than waste 100 rupees. Okay.
I'm honestly quite surprised that you have to convince people about what
I had to
coaching
convince my
is in
own
sport.
family who's like the torch bearers of this sport.
Oh,
But
wow.
because it was something that they'd never seen, and ki kyun hoga, it didn't resonate with them.
Ronak, now that I know it must have been very hard, as you say, to convince people that coaching is a viable option in India. So how did that journey really start for you once you did manage to, get past the skepticism?
So see, because it was never done earlier, I had to ensure that I do it at a price point which doesn't become a question mark for people.
Yeah.
And you may be a very accomplished star or whatever, but people are coming there for gaining knowledge. And you can't say because I'm a star now I'm going to charge you 10x or whatever,
Yeah.
because the demand is not there. So first you got to create that demand. You got to create the market. So I remember I just made a small write up of who I am and how training with me can help them improve their shooting journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, that ways. And of course, not everyone is going to end up becoming a national champion or a world champion. So
Yeah.
there is no fooling around that. Come
Correct.
to me and I'll make you champion. No, I was very honest from day one that all I can do is take you to your potential. What's your potential? God knows.
Correct.
All right, not even you know.
Correct.
But at least I can guarantee that you're not going to find anyone else who will be able to improve you more than what I already did. Yeah, right. So I was very clear with my communication. I was always very honest, very, very forthright with what to expect and why you should do it. So that way I started. I just on a A4 paper put it down. Didn't get any fancy brochures or flyers made. Nothing. And just that I made a couple of copies. I kept it at the shooting range, and I would because I'd been training there for a long time. I knew who's coming regularly and not, and I would just hand it over to them, talk to them one on one, tell them if required 1 or 2 sessions. Just start and see how it is, and then
Correct.
that ways. So started off very very small, and I would train them on the weekends. Monday to Friday I would be busy with other things. So Saturday Sundays, and also because people in Mumbai, everyone has either school or work or whatever, and people are free only on weekends. So that is one big challenge of the city, that even post school or post work, it's just that traveling time is so much that realistically it's not possible to do it during the week. So I just did okay. So weekends pay karenge, and the fees were accordingly just quite low for that. And that's how I started. And people started understanding that there was so much about the sport that we didn't know and would have never known.
Yeah.
And I think human beings like that's how society was formed. We like being in groups, like family and groups and society.
Communities.
And communities.
That's what we're building at Bombay Founders Club
Correct,
as well.
correct. Community, right?
Yeah.
So imagine now if you go to the shooting range and you see these 5-6 people training together with someone, and you are training by yourself, you will automatically get pulled to that. Right?
Very interesting.
So that's what eventually happened. Now, obviously these things I didn't know earlier.
Yeah.
But I learned these things along the way. And that's how I started. And then, then one thing led to the other. People started performing better. And one of my early successes came when one of these girls, she used to live in Virar. The shooting range is at Worli.
Yeah.
She used to travel from Virar to Worli every weekend.
Wow.
And she came to me saying that, my latest performance last week was a 299 out of 400, which is a very, very pathetic result.
Yeah.
For anyone who's been training, So I said, okay, let's start. And I was like, you may be a great coach, but if you don't get great talent, what's the use, So you're always in search of that.
Yeah.
And I was like, mujhe sab aise hi milte ja rahe, that ways. When she came, and I saw her basics, and she was rock steady. And I'm like, how can this girl shoot? I mean, she has to shoot 50 points more than what she's shooting. She came into the national squad. She qualified to participate in the selection trials, and she did so well that under a year and a half, she was part of the World Cup team of India,
Oh, wow.
and that changed a lot of things for others. You know, suddenly
Who
everyone was
was
like,
this
"Oh."
shooter? Do we know her name?
So her name is Ruchita.
Okay.
Ruchita Vinarkar. She also won a individual bronze medal at the Asian Championships in 2016.
Oh, wow.
So she went on to win an international medal. Recently, she got awarded the Shiv Chhatrapati Award, which is the highest states award for the state of Maharashtra. So that changed a lot of things, and a lot more people started coming in, even from other ranges. They started coming in. So that's how it started. So I started from one range, and then I hired an assistant under me. Then I went on to set up a range in some other places. But again, the finances of this is such that you can't really go in Mumbai, rent out a place and do it. It's just not going to be viable. So there was a lot of things that you had to plan, like any entrepreneur. You just
Yeah.
you just had to plan
Yeah.
and be very thrifty about it. And yeah,
That's, I think, very similar to a lot of entrepreneurs. And
yeah.
that's why I think they enjoyed listening to you so much when you did address them at the Bombay Founders Club meetup when you did. But I'd love to know, Ronak, so coaching, just from handing out flyers at the range to shooting at Paris 2024, right? Sorry, being the head coach of Paris 2024. That seems like quite a jump, like quite a journey.
Yeah.
So when did you get into like coaching the actual superstars, and when did you get that recognition?
Yeah, so this journey of becoming coach started in end of 2008, early 2009, and I started doing this while I had still not hung my boots completely. I was still trying for that one last shot. But along with my own shooting, let's start doing this side by side. That
Correct.
initial phase.
Correct.
So I had invited one of the coaches of USSR team back in the day, when USSR team was called the Dream Team. Like, if they were in the USSR would win all the medals, like how China is today in shooting. The Chinese team was the most formidable, and now obviously China and India are almost at par.
Yeah.
But in the 80s, you just couldn't touch the USSR team. They were so good. So the guy who was the head coach of the USSR team in the 80s, I somehow, it's like when there is a will, there is a way.
Yeah.
Somehow, it's not that everything is easily available on Google,
Yeah.
and I'm talking of the mid 2000s, where
Yeah.
internet was not as powerful as it is today. I somehow got in touch with him, convinced him at his old age to come to India and work with me,
Oh, wow.
train me as my personal coach, and post my Commonwealth Games medals. I was probably the only shooter in the country who had some financial support in terms of Aditya Birla Group was sponsoring me. I had a 4-year contract with them. So fortunately, Kumar Mangalam Birla sir, used to come to the range, and I was fortunate enough to have met him and received some support from the Aditya Birla Group. So because of that, I was able to call this great coach. And when he came and when he taught me the true art of shooting, until then it was all hit and miss, trial and error sort of
Yeah.
a thing, right? Like I said, there was no permanent coaches and all in the country. That's when I realized that what were we doing all this while?
Yeah.
We just didn't know just like, how, say, Rocky. Say
Yeah.
Rocky 1 and Rocky 2,
Yeah.
Sylvester Stallone just brute force, just going and just hitting.
Yeah.
And then in Rocky 3, he gets beaten by Clubber Lang.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and he gets thrashed by Clubber Lang. Now, obviously, this is fiction and all those things, but it's true. That's what happens in sport. And then and then Apollo teaches him the technique, and then with technique, he goes back to Clubber Lang. So you need to
Yeah.
have the resilience, you need to have that killer instinct, but you can't just go street fighting.
Yeah.
So यहाँ पे भी जोर के दम पे कितना perform कर लोगे?
Yeah.
Finally, you need technique. And then he told me that instead of just doing one-on-one training, it's better we train in a group. So there's also some competition and
Correct.
things like that.
Correct.
So I invited some of the other top shooters of that time to train with us. Some of them agreed, some of them didn't. One of those shooters was Hina Sidhu at
Okay.
that point in time, and she was an upcoming shooter, but she was doing very well, and so this was end of 2009 and 2010,
Yeah.
and she did very well at the Delhi Commonwealth Games. Um, I did reasonably well in the trials, but I could not get selected for the Delhi 2010 Commonwealth
Yeah.
Games. So for me, that was like it, and I hung my boots in 2010.
Yeah.
She did very well in the Delhi Commonwealth Games, and post that she continued to do well because she was still training under the same coach. Now the coach had gone back after my contract with the Aditya Birla Group had ended, so the coach went back, but through emails and all, he was in touch, and so Hina continued to do well, and couple of months before the London Olympic Games in 2012, she was selected as part of the Indian Olympic team,
Oh, wow.
right?
Yeah.
And that's when, and once it's the Olympics, things change. The kind of pressure you're going to face and all of those
Yeah.
things. You need to, and it's once in a lifetime opportunity, right? You got to do
Correct.
everything you can.
Correct.
So that's when me and Hinan, we were friends,
Yeah.
right? Training under the same coach, and on and off, I would help her. So from 2011 onwards, it's not easy to always get in touch with someone living so far. So there was a lot of times when we would talk and we would discuss, and I would guide her a little bit here or there. And then when the 2012 Olympic selection happened, that's when we decided, okay, that this is huge, and we have to give it our all. And I think end of 2011, we'd also started seeing each other, and so then we thought, this, so we have to give it our all.
Yeah.
And I knew the ability Hina had. You had not seen a shooter like her in pistol shooting in India, and she had a very bright chance at the Olympics. But again, what happened was, normally when you think of a coach, you would think of a 55-year-old,
Yeah.
60-year-old,
Yeah.
and here now you have a 2012, you have a 22-year-old, 23-year-old athlete saying this 26, 27-year-old is my coach.
Yeah.
It just wouldn't go down under anyone's throat, especially in a country like India where merit has just no place. I think the last thing we look at is merit. People look at age and seniority and all that nonsense subjective stuff, but nobody looks at objective merit. So of course we faced a lot of difficulty, a lot of criticism. People just thought that, hey, they're just not serious about their sport and they're just going out to have fun and all those things. With all of these things, with all of the poor government funding, where when Hina went to the sports ministry, there's this National Sports Development Fund. Under that fund, you could get funding for the Olympics. And when she went there to meet the sports minister at that time, he told her, अरे तुम इतनी दुबली पतली लड़की, तुमसे शूटिंग होती है, you know. So
Oh,
just
God.
yeah, that sort of an attitude. So and so Hina wasn't given any funding from the government, and
wow.
Mittal's Champions Trust, MCT
Yeah.
as it was known. So Lakshmi Mittal had a trust, because the games were happening in London, and he's based out of London, so he wanted India to do well at those games. So they had set up a trust, and they were funding Hina. But obviously, nobody can match the muscle of government funding,
Yeah.
right? So we had limited funds, and when you want to get the best professional help, it's expensive. So if I tell you, you know, we will go to we'll go for car racing, but the budget is 5 lakhs. All right, now, okay, in 5 lakhs there's a certain kind of car you will get, and a certain
Yeah.
kind of whatever support you're going to get.
Correct.
So, but if you want to win that competition, and if you need a car which costs you 5 crores, and you need a coach who is going to cost you couple of lakhs every month or whatever, you need that kind of budget to be
Yeah.
competitive. Otherwise, you don't stand a chance.
Yeah.
So, and we had that same thing in mind, and we roped in one of the best sports scientists of the world, and he was obviously very expensive for Indian standards, so people couldn't believe that somebody could charge that much. But well, yeah, the best in the world do that. So we paid a lot of money from our own pocket. Mittal Champions Trust obviously helped us a lot, and to save money, what we used to do, so we were training in Germany because it was so difficult to get visas and all those things to come to India. But he was from Canada, and I think to come to Germany he didn't need visa. He could come in and out anytime. So we made Germany our training base, and to save up on funds for our own training and to pay his fees, what we used to do was not eat lunch, or there was doner kebab which was worth 2 euros. So if you're there for 3 months, and if you're going to eat a meal which costs 20 euros versus a meal which will cost you 5 euros, so 15 euros into 100 days, 1500 euros. So chalo utna to bachaya. That sort of. Those are the kind of things we used to do to save money to be able to pay our professionals. And so this was our Olympic journey. So ye karte karte, then when Hina almost made it to the finals, which is the last two shots of that Olympic competition where she got out of the finals. Yeah. She was in the run completely. So that's when people realized that no, these guys are doing something right. This is a result which nobody has achieved in pistol shooting before Hina, in women's event especially. So then they started taking us a little more seriously, and because of Hina, some other national level players from across the country started coming to Mumbai to train under me. But again, a good shooter, national level shooter, is not going to get funding. They need to pay out of their own pockets, and then to come to Mumbai to train means your accommodation expenses and travel expenses. So it used to become exorbitant. So there was a challenge that I faced as a coach, because that's an obvious challenge. Okay, the shooters want to come and train with you, but well, they don't have. Yeah, they have money to pay for your coaching, but they don't have money for the accommodation, all those things that Bombay is going to throw up at you. So that challenge is always there. But some of the national squad shooters started working with me, and they found me very accessible, and I think the honesty always showed that this guy, whatever he says, makes sense. He's not fooling us, he's not taking us for a ride, he's not trying to overcomplicate things just so that कि मेरे बिना तो तुम्हारा कुछ होगा ही नहीं, sort of a thing. That's what most coaches end up doing. They start complicating things so much that the shooter feels कि अरे without proper guidance, so we don't stand a chance. But it's always, it's like if you're a good person, and if you get time, your goodness comes out.
Oh wow.
But I'm a person who likes to believe that there is good in this world. Otherwise, it's impossible to survive, with that kind of insecurity and negativity. So 2016, then I was made the coach and manager of the Indian Olympic team. But that was just that one project, sort of a thing. But after that, in 17, then the federation made me the coach, and then 17 onwards, then I've been working then with the federation, and then for the Tokyo Olympics, I was the coach. For the Paris Olympics, I was one of the chief coaches for 25-meter events, and a lot of the firsts happened under my position as the chief coach. Like India in 25-meter event had only 1-2. You have to qualify for the Olympics. So until then, I think Rahi, Sarnabat, and Vijay Kumar were the only two athletes who had won qualifications to the Olympics. And there are four events. So it's like the history of Indian shooting, two have qualified, and in my during my tenure we had 100% qualifications. So how the whole strength of the team came up. Asian Games, we had unbeatable results, almost like 100% sort of results for 3 competitions back to back, due to the Asian Games, the World Championships and the Asian Championships. The 25-meter women's team got the gold. So they were the Asian Games champion, they were the world champion, and 25-meter was an event which until a few years back was not even considered competitive.
So what caused that change? Like what did you implement, or what do you think you brought about that?
See, one is clarity of technique, of course. So there is clarity of technique, and then people know that okay, what matters and what doesn't matter. So what they need to focus on during the training, and what else is just gas and distraction. So if you're putting in the effort, but putting in the effort on the wrong things, it's not getting you results. Or if you're lucky, if you're unlucky, you could be focusing on counterproductive areas, right? So that clarity happened. And second, you always have to create an atmosphere where you allow the athletes to bloom. You can't overpower everything. So you have to create a sense of that positivity, that space where everybody is able to do their own. They have the freedom to think, to act. They don't have to worry about. See, you have to be disciplined, but you don't have to always use a stick all the time. But what happens is, in the coaching field, Normal people think, oh, now I'm responsible for this team, so it will happen exactly as per what I say. No, it's not about you, it's about them.
Yeah.
You have to be humble enough to understand that your job is to improve your athletes. So, in effect, they are the customers, right? They are the customers, and customers is always right. Customer is the boss. You exist for the customer,
Yeah.
right? So if you look at it from that perspective, then things fall in place. But if you feel कि नहीं, what I think is right and what I do is right and this is how it's going to happen, no, then you're just catering to your own ego.
I agree. That makes sense. And you also coached Manu Bhaker, who won the first Olympic medal as an Indian shooter. Correct me if I'm
No,
wrong
she was
about
the
any of
first.
this.
So she won two Olympic medals in the same edition. That is the first athlete ever. So basically, for Tokyo, I
Yeah.
was for Tokyo, I was training her for 2.5 months. I trained her, and I think she did very well in Tokyo, given the situation she was in at that time. At that point in time, the age she was very young, and she did phenomenally well. A lot of things didn't go as planned, but considering all of that, I think it was a great effort, fight, and performance from her. Not everything translates into a medal, because see, the whole world is working towards that. But post that, she had a dip in her performance, and then she united with her earlier coach. But I think the whole team. So finally, I was the coach of the team, not a personal coach. I was the coach of the entire
Yeah.
25-meter team, and I was the coach of the 25-meter team. There was another coach who was the coach of the 10-meter team, and I think all of us, we just worked well together, and all of us realized that it's not about us, it is about the athletes. What we have to do is
Yeah.
ensure that the athlete gets what they need.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Ronak, I've always wondered. I mean, I've grown up, I think, a little more recently. I remember seeing the Beijing Olympics as the first Olympics that I properly remember. And I always wondered, why does India not bring home as many medals as, some of the other countries? And I'm sure this is a question that you get asked a lot. It's something that you guys probably talk about a lot within the sports circles of India. But what's holding us back from, say, that 100 medal tally, or those, really competing on that world stage the way we probably do with cricket?
The answer is going to shock you. So the general belief is that the infrastructure is not so good. We have one of the best infrastructures in the world. Period. We have one of the best infrastructures across sports in the world. Now, there could be one or two sports where the infrastructure is not as good, but generally, by far, we have one of the best infrastructures in the world. At least in shooting, I can vouch for it. There could be something like a China which can be at par with us, but rest, no chance. We have the best infrastructure. We have very talented athletes. Until 10 years ago, at least in shooting, the policies were not as open, so you could not get, because our equipment are guns and they are imported. So a lot of paperwork, bureaucracy, permits were required. But in the last 10 years, the last president of our federation, Mr. Ananda Singh, he did a great service to the sport by opening up a lot of these policies, by coordinating with the government. He made things a lot simpler for an average shooter. So if imagine if it takes you a year just to get your equipment, how is it going to work? Versus now that you get your equipment in a month or 2 months at most. So a lot of these things actually helped us, and that is why you see a rise in shooting as a sport. But coming to the point where why we are not bringing in dozens of medals, it's just because we don't have the right people at the right places who can think, let alone think right. People who are making decisions are people who have never played sport, and just because you've played sport doesn't give you the ability to take right decisions. See, you may have been a great athlete in your time. That's because you had great talent of being an athlete. Now, just because you're a great athlete doesn't mean you'll end up becoming a good coach, because you may know the technique, but you need to have the ability to communicate that technique in a way which the other person is going to understand. And if he's not able to understand, what are the different ways in which you can make him understand and implement it? If he's still not able to get it, how are you going to make him, uh, how are you going to reach his heart, his soul, his head? You need those skills to be a coach. You need different skills to be an athlete. You need different skills to be a coach. You need different skills to be an administrator. Now, what is happening is, we have politicians and bureaucrats who are in these positions. They have never played sport. They don't understand the requirements of sport. They don't understand the concept of speedy decisions in sport. Case in point, my athlete needs to get a custom made grip. Alright, this particular grip is giving her trouble, and now she needs to get a custom made grip. For this, she needs to travel to Europe because there's no custom grip making in India. So she needs to travel to Europe to get the grip made. And then we need to test that thing for a couple of days, and if requires some more modifications there, so she needs to go there, stay there for 10-12 days or whatever. Such a proposal should be able to get clearance in 48 hours. That we need to go to such and such place. This is the requirement. This is the expenses. This is the funding we need. So kindly approve our kindly just approve a case. Now, if this needs to go to 4 different departments and needs to take a couple of months, it doesn't work, because 6 weeks down the line you might have a selection trial, or you might have an international competition, because competitions keep happening on an average every 4 to 6 weeks. And if decisions are not taken in 24 to 48 hours at max, it's not going to work. What decisions to take? Are you the right person to take that decision? Like, for example, the guy sitting there is deciding whether Hina should get funding or not for the Olympic Games. What basis does he have? The fact that she's qualified to go means she's
support them wholeheartedly.
Yeah. So it's things like this. So, and simple things about, and I think education has a big role to play, because what happens is, so either you have politicians or bureaucrats who are in those positions, or then what you do is you put ex-athletes in those positions. Now, ex-athletes, sorry to say, do not have, a lot of them do not have, again, this is not for all, but a lot of them do not have the right education. They are not good at administering, they're not good at managing, they are not good at anticipating, they're not good at forecasting. You need all these skills at that position, and we don't have all of that, and because of which we are suffering. Recently there was this controversy about Gopichand having said that only the upper middle class and rich kids should play sport, and people took it wrong. And this is what he actually means, that what is the probability of you succeeding? One, how do you know? Say, for example, I did reasonably well in shooting. Accidentally I got into the sport, I won medal, and that motivated me to continuously ho gaya. What if I had more skills for badminton? What if I had more talent for table tennis or tennis? How do I know that? You don't know that, right? So वो तो ये मैंने किया, and I come from a reasonably well off background, so I could sustain. But what about the other people? So say, if in India there are 1 million kids who are pursuing sport, finally each sport will have 3 winners: gold, silver, bronze, gold, silver, bronze, gold, silver, bronze. So you might end up having 5,000 winners from that million. What is going to happen to that balance 9,95,000 people?
Yeah.
So we need an ecosystem which takes care of those 1 million kids who are playing sport and who get education, so that if they don't end up doing well in their active career as an athlete, they have other avenues to.
Wow. Now that is very, very interesting. In fact, I was just going to say that, we have aptitude tests that kids take to decide whether to become a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer. Right. You have career counselors who exist specifically for that.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever sat in a sports counseling or heard of anybody who into a sports counseling session where their skills are tested and.
And this is what needs to happen from the government side, because see, this requires a lot of funding. It requires a huge team. All right. So now the government needs to start a vertical, which is just talent identification vertical. Now for that, what you need to do? Now again, like I said, education is a scarce commodity in our country, at least for the previous generation. So, but say at least people like me, okay, you will find dozens in each sport. Get them to discuss, get them to brainstorm that this is the required talent or parameters for shooting. This is for badminton. This is for basketball. This is for table tennis. Whatever, and then just go to schools.
I'm also curious. I know that the government has released some schemes for funding, etc. But how is the deployment of them today? In terms of budgeting.
Much better. I would say that, yeah, for all that I'm saying and sounds like criticism, I'm not actually criticizing. All that I'm saying is, yeah, we've come a long way, but there's still a much longer way to go.
Yeah.
Right. And the problem with us as a society, especially India, is we have a small achievement and we start just celebrating it too early. Arre, chill, बहुत अच्छा किया, great, well done. Keep working. There's still a long way to go.
Yeah.
So I would say on a scale of 0 to 10, we are somewhere around 4.
Yeah.
3.5, 4. But look at 6. So great, we've reached 4. But don't start wasting time and resources and celebrating as if we already reached 10.
That makes a lot of sense. Now, Ronak, I want to talk about the coaching side of things because I know we've had some conversations at the range where you've completely blown my mind. I'd like for you to tell, the audience here about the element of luck in shooting, which is inbuilt in the very sport itself.
So I think not just shooting, I think any sport has a big element of luck. And all that you do by training and training well is reduce that element of luck and increase your probability of being lucky. Right? So, for example, shooting, simply put, what do you need to shoot well? You need a steady arm and then you need the ability to trigger without disturbing that arm. And you don't have stray thoughts or silly thoughts which just unnerve you. Finally, you're a human being, you're not a machine. The bullseye is much smaller than your ability to be physically still. So it's possible that when you are triggering, a good shot ends up being a 9.9 versus I was moving in the 9 but I ended up jerking my trigger and luckily I just got a 10. So that thing is always there. That happens. But when you're training correctly, when you're further improving your stability and your skills, you're just increasing the probability of you succeeding. And you just have to the kind of training that we do for that, the biofeedback training. That
What is biofeedback training?
So basically, see, what does biofeedback mean? Biofeedback just means feedback from your body.
Yeah.
Now, as athletes, you should be self-aware. You should be self-aware of how your body is feeling, of what you are thinking and how you're feeling. You should be very aware because when you're aware, you can do something about it and regulate yourself, right? But if you're always lost in your thoughts and if it's like listen to yourself.
Yeah.
But if you don't have the skill to listen to yourself, and that's a skill. If you don't have the skill to listen to yourself, you only don't know yourself.
Yeah.
And then when you are in a competition, and if you don't know yourself and you are at your most vulnerable, you will not be able to handle yourself. So biofeedback, so there's heart rate variability training in that. And what we also used to do was neurofeedback, the 16-channel electroencephalograph, your brain mapping and
okay.
that when you're doing well, which parts of your brain are working in what capacity and how. So you just try to then. So it's like you get a template of how you are when you're doing well, and then you train. And again, there is no specific way. You just got to find your way by which on demand you're able to enter that state more often than not.
Wow, very interesting. If I may ask, what have you really realized while brain mapping these athletes, and what in the highest performance state, what does our brain do?
So again, in India, we are not doing it at a large scale. This is something we did for a very brief period before the London Olympics with Hina. And again, everybody is going to be different. And again, it's going to get very technical, and I'm probably not, because it's like being a coach. I know what I want and what I want to see, but if I start discussing, because these are scientific terms which I'm not very well versed of, it's this part of the head and the frontal lobe and the prefrontal cortex and all. So I wouldn't get into all of that. But the idea being that we need to get a lot more scientific. And like I said, a lot of this is common sense.
Yeah.
That now you have technology available by which you can get data on how your body, your mind is when you're doing well. So why not grab that data and then find ways of being able to get into that zone, get that state. Right now, this is expensive, no doubt. This is expensive, but like I said, if the government is willing to spend 500 crores on sport, again just an example, if they are willing to spend 500 crores on sport and get 5 Olympic medals versus spending 1000 crores and we might get 30 Olympic medals, definitely your return on equity is much higher, right?
Yeah. Ronak, I'd love to know, right, that when I fire a gun and if the gun is in the same position and the same shot, can you guarantee that it will go to the exact same spot on the target every single time?
No. Yeah, so for all those ideas about accuracy and all, everything is relative. So if you fix a gun on the vice and shoot
What is a
shots,
vice?
vice. So basically, it's a device which holds anything in absolute still position. So say if you fit the gun in a vice, which it's a tool which just holds the gun and won't let it move even a millimeter. So and then if you just load and shoot, load and shoot, load and shoot, you could expect the target to have just one hole and all the bullets going through the same hole, right? But that doesn't happen. So the guns are accurate, but it's not like 100% accurate. So say like for example, an air pellet is 4.5 millimeters of diameter, but if you were to shoot 10 shots back to back, ideally you should be able to see 4.5 millimeters diameter at the target. But you would see anywhere between 6 to 10 millimeters,
Oh, wow.
with the 11 millimeters just being the size of the 10.
Oh, wow. And what is the difference between gold and fourth in most international competitions?
Oh, in pistol, it could be a millimeter.
Okay.
Yeah, because in pistol, it's like how much closer you are to the center of the target, you get decimal points also. So, say if you just barely touch the 10th ring, it will be 10.0. And if you're in the dead center, it will become 10.9. But so that each decimal is almost a millimeter. I think it's smaller than a millimeter, but
Yeah.
it's almost a millimeter. That way, so your difference from winning to between winning and losing would be 1 millimeter at 34 feet.
Oh, wow. And
Yeah.
the
And your gun has that inbuilt inaccuracy, so to say. Not just the gun, your target itself has
Yeah.
a tolerance level. It's not 100% accurate. See, everything has margin of error.
Yeah.
Right? So it has a margin of error. So if you see all these things, again, it remains constant for all shooters. But किसी के लिए हो सकता है कि it could be the gun was a bit lower but the inaccuracy was towards the higher place. For someone who was a bit to the right, the inaccuracy happened to be on the left side and it got
Wow.
compensated, sort of thing. So you have to live with it. In case of air rifle, they are bullseye. Air rifle is what Abhinav Bindra won his gold medal and Gagan Narang won his Olympic bronze in. That is a dot. Like say with your ballpoint pen, if you just make a dot on the paper, that is the bullseye, which they have to hit at 10 meters.
Oh, wow.
That is why if you come to the range and sometimes you see
Yeah.
these people in the special gears, it's like this NASA astronaut suit,
Yeah,
after wearing it,
yeah.
they can't even walk properly. So these are canvas trousers and jackets which hold them absolutely in position. And so they get they try and get 100% stability or as much as humanly possible to try and hit that dot. And now the sport has changed its rules from hitting to the dot to how much in the center of dot you can be.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's like now you're not in the center of dot, the dot has to be in the center of your bullet,
Oh, wow.
because the bullet is bigger than your target.
Oh, wow. That is quite insane to
Yeah.
to hear. Yeah. So tell me something, Ronak. When you coach these Olympians, right, on at the highest level, how do they go about their preparation and setting goals and performance? Like, what is the process look like?
See, there's in the table of periodization, depends on what phase of training you are in. So there are different phases. One is called training to train. Then there's something called as training to compete, and then training to win. So and in that, how an athlete would, with the help of a coach, plan the training sessions. So, for example, if you're in the training to train phase, Most of the athletes wouldn't even have heard of these phases.
Yeah.
And that is why, your effort doesn't end up getting that much fruit because things are not as organized as they should be. But coming back to the point that if you're doing training to train, so it's basically you are training a specific skill which helps you shoot better, right? So, say you are working on a particular skill. Now, when you need to develop a particular skill, you need to pay more attention on ensuring that you're doing it properly. So, the number of repetitions could be low, but the quality of those repetitions needs to be very high. Now, when I say quality, means that much mind is being applied, that much sensitivity is required to ensure that you're doing it properly. So it's possible that after 40 shots you're drained. So no problem, 40 shots, but 100% shots with 100% attention. As you're able to master that action, then you'd probably go to 50 shots, 60 shots, 70 shots. So then initially you were just developing the skill. Now you need the repetition to cement that skill. All right. So that is training to train. Then when you go to train to compete, now you want to be able to execute that skill under pressure in competition conditions. So you will test that skill. So it's like how you study and then you go for mock tests and then you go for the board exam, right? So वैसे you will test your technique under different circumstances. You would give different result goals to yourself to achieve, and then figure out what is breaking down in terms of technique or any part of the equipment which is not supporting your technique as much. So you modify that, and then in the end it comes to training to win, where you are anticipating and foreseeing everything that could go wrong, and you are recreating those things in your training and ensuring that you have an answer and a way out of all possible situations.
Wow, that is very, very interesting, Ronak. But so kind of like I'd say running almost. So say for example, if Usain Bolt is preparing for 100 meters, he probably doesn't know how fast everybody else is running
Yeah.
in the world, right? You only get to know that when you compete with them at the world stage. So how do you prepare for something like that in shooting?
Yeah, so see, you cannot prepare. So for example, we know that usually to enter the final round you would need, in a particular event, say you would need a 585. Suppose that you would need a 585 to enter the final round in an event, and then once you enter the final round, then in the finals you would need this particular score to have a chance at a medal, because that is what is usually the score, the average score that medals go at. But finally, what's going to happen on that day, that you don't know, and you can't keep that score in mind. What you do is you just keep that score as an indicator. So when you are training, are you getting that result consistently in training or not? So if I'm training and if I'm doing very well and if I'm getting say 85%, now whether the 85% is enough or not, or whether I need to do 90%, how would I know? And see, this is all percentile. Like you wouldn't
Correct.
know. It's not okay 85, so okay, I need to reach 100. But here, how do you know that this is enough or not? So then you just use the this data of what score is required to enter the final and what score usually the medals go at, is the data that tells you whether you are prepared or not, whether there is more preparation that you need to do. Because for example, say okay, Usain Bolt. Now how you can't say, oh, you need to be able to finish 100 meters in 0.01 seconds.
Yeah.
So for him, it could be 9.8, 9.7, 9.2, but he knows that okay, if anything under 10 means you're competitive at the world stage. So no matter what, I got to be under 10, or I got to be under 9.9, or I got to be 9.5. To give you those kind of targets.
Yeah.
So what you're doing, whether you are up there or not, so it's just an indication.
Yeah.
Finally, when you're competing, you are just in the flow, and you are just following your steps.
Yeah.
Certain part of your technique are going to be on conscious control, certain part of your technique are going to be on absolute subconscious. You need to know what needs to be on conscious and what needs to be on subconscious, and you're just in that flow.
Yeah. And I'm sure that all of these preparations, etc., are also very isolating for athletes, because you're probably living a life unlike a lot of other people, right? You don't have office colleagues. You don't get to go for a dinner with friends when you want to. You may not be able to catch that beer with colleagues on a Friday evening. Your life is very different. And I'm sure that also takes a massive mental toll on athletes. So I just wanted to understand from you, because you work with these athletes day in, day out, that what do these athletes go through? Like, how is it like for them?
Very, very, very difficult um, for all the star kind of celebrity kind of life that you see. It comes at a huge cost, especially for athletes, because starts training say in the early teen, mid-teen years. They are at their peak in the later teen to their, in their 20s. That is the time when you form bonds, when you make friends, when you set a career path and all those things, when you learn skills. All of that time is gone in just sharpening your sport skills. For that you got to be you got to be training and physical training and all of this, and especially in a sport like shooting, which is an individual sport. It's not even like you have a team, a team of 10,
Yeah.
11 cricketers or 20
Yeah.
cricketers or whatever.
Yeah.
So यहाँ पे तो वो भी नहीं होता है. So now when you and okay, earlier you were in school and you were attending college a little bit because you're traveling so much, so your attendance is not so much. Now because your attendance is not so much, you're not able to form friends also, na? Because imagine 10 times or plan something, I'm able to come only 2 times, 11 times you might say कि इसको बुलाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, he is never there. And people don't realize, sometimes they'll think भाव खाता है. He's just
Yeah.
acting pricey. It's
Correct.
not the case, I'm really not there. Or even if I'm there, but you tell me, come let's go for a movie at 6 in the evening, but I'll be like, tomorrow morning I need to wake up at 6:30, I have this, nahi yaar, I need to be in bed by 9:30, 10, sorry yaar, I won't be able to come for the movie. You are not going to be able to understand it in,
Correct.
and you're 18, 20-year-old, you're not going to be able to understand this. So you end up actually losing friends. And as long as you're competing, okay, you and your support team, support staff and all those things, you have your own world. This is your world. But after that, it's a big fall. So one of our friends in shooting, it's like now she wants to have a relation. She wants to marry. Who do you marry? You would, if you're working, it could be your work colleague, somebody from your college who's been your friend or school friend, somebody you met, friends, something. यहाँ तो कोई होगा ही नहीं. It's such basic things are so difficult.
We need to connect her with Seema auntie.
Okay. Great. I think something will come out of this podcast.
Yeah. I think so. Seema auntie, if you're watching, we've got the perfect candidate for the next season of Indian matchmaking.
Yeah. But it's like
Yeah.
it's like this. So it's a huge thing. So off balance.
Yeah.
And say at work today you don't feel like working or being lazy, you're not able to pay attention.
Yeah.
It's not that you're going to incur a loss.
Correct.
It's still going to, you are not at your best, but it's still good. The fact that you were there and you could just do some work is okay.
Yeah.
But in sport, what happens, couple of days like this, your efficiency goes down, you're not training as well, but somebody else is. So now he is at an advantage, you're not, because you were not
Yeah.
able to train as well or whatever. So you're always pushing yourself to be the best version every day, and that takes a toll. So that is why a lot of the athletes post Olympics and get into depression. Now, after winning Olympic medals, also they enter depression because it's such a big fall. Because for that particular competition, they were also focused and constantly working on themselves, trying to improve themselves with their own team, that it doesn't hit them. But now the competition is over, and whether you've done well or not, that's
Yeah.
immaterial. Even after winning the medal, people enter depression because suddenly, like, now what?
Oh God, that's
Yeah. So
quite terrible to hear. I mean, I know you're married to Hina Sidhu, and you mentioned that you trained her at some point. Between you and her, have you seen such experiences where, after winning something, it just doesn't feel right almost?
So Hina became the first pistol shooter to create a world record. Alright. Now, create a world record, become world number 1. That is dream, right? She achieved that. And so once we went back to the hotel after that performance in Germany, we thought, okay, great. Tonight we will celebrate, that ways. But for hours at end, Hina was crying after that performance, because for her goal in shooting was, okay, Olympics medal, yes, but her ultimate goal was to become world number 1 and create a world record. Because for her, creating world record means performing reaching where no one has reached. Olympic medal somebody has to win.
Yeah.
World champion somebody has to become.
Yeah.
But to create a world record means that is upping the bar of human performance, right?
Yeah.
That's what she thought. And she thought that on that day, she will have to be, like, first she will have to put in that much effort and she will have to perform that well that day, and that is going to require so much effort. And she had a fictional idea of how it's going to be. Unfortunately, on that day, it just happened. And she wasn't thinking about it, she wasn't feeling it. So it's like, for her, she wanted to experience the path of setting the world record. But you would know you've set the world record in retrospect. Like after the performance, you would know
Yeah.
world record bana diya.
Yeah.
So it's like uska wo ban gaya, and she was like, oh God, like, this is done. And there was still so many mistakes and there was still so much of flaw in my performance. Like I thought it's going to happen on the day when my performance was just absolutely beautiful. But today there were so many difficulties, so many mistakes that I made, and there's so much I can improve. And world record ban gaya, like, no, this can't be, So just now, if she was with, say, a friend, just a friend, impossible to understand these things.
Yeah.
But you have to, these are strange things athletes go through.
Yeah, very true. I remember the first time we met, Ronak, we had spoken about this, where I told you that in entrepreneurship, it's a kind of a winner's take all market. Right? Today you have a Zepto, you have a Blinkit, a Swiggy, Instamart. But then after that, your fought to number 100 may not even have a 3% market share. Right? And I remember you telling me that athletes also sometimes go through the same thing, that you may be a world-class athlete, but if you don't get that Olympic medal or if you don't get that, international medal, there is nothing to show for it.
So, there are so many cases like this. So there's one German shooter, air rifle shooter, Sonia Fileshifter. I think for me, she was the greatest air rifle shooter of that era. Any World Cup that she participated in, she was always in the finals, and she won almost all of them. If you go to her biography on the International Shooting Sport Federation page, you'll probably see 30, 40, I don't know how many World Cup medals.
Oh, wow.
But I don't think she's won a single Olympic medal.
Huh?
She's played 5 or 6 Olympics. I think she made it to the finals of almost all of them.
Yeah.
But she didn't win a single Olympic medal. So,
But how do you explain that?
because on that day, she performed well, but not good enough to be in top 3. As simple as that. I feel Abhinav Bindra, he's the first individual Olympic champion from India.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for me, the beauty of his performance, or the beauty of him, was in 2016. That was his last Olympic Games, and he had announced that this is my last competition and I'm retiring. I think that anyways put a lot of pressure on you, right? Knowing that first it's the Olympic Games and this is going to be my last competition. Like I said, I was there as part of the coach of the Indian team and the manager, and I saw his performance, and he was doing quite okay, like nothing great. And in the end, if it didn't hit 5 sixes in that over, he would not be able to win.
Yeah.
And the best 10 shots of his match came in the last 10 shots. Did very well, and I think maybe from the 13th or the 14th place, he just jumped up to the 7th or 8th place and got into the finals. In the finals again, everybody's under pressure. Everybody's trying to do their best. He's fighting, and he ties for the bronze medal. He ties for the bronze medal. And in the tie shoot, I think he shot a 10.0 and the guy who won the bronze eventually shot a 10.1. That 0.1, according to me, again, I might not be 100% accurate, but according to me, that 0.1 was 0.1 millimeter or less. 0.1 millimeter or less closer to the center than Abhinav's shot. 0.1 millimeter or less. at a distance of 10 meters.
Wow.
Right? And Abhinav came fourth. Okay, fourth at the Olympics is amazing. But to have tied for the bronze, but given a fourth
Yeah.
position, and saying that okay, done. It's not like no, I'll go for my next competition and then I will retire. Like I'll win and then I will
Yeah.
retire. No, just said pack up. And people said, "What, you did so well?" He said, "No, I didn't do that well. I was good enough for fourth. That's it."
Wow.
Like it's just amazing, and this is one quality that you need as a champion athlete. That this is what it is,
Yeah.
and he was better than me. Finished.
That is so insane to hear.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we what we would probably hear is that Abhinav Bindra came fourth, and we'd be like, oh God, he missed out on bronze. But we
No,
don't
these
really
stories,
know
man,
this
you don't know.
backstory. Yeah.
You know, I remember once very interesting. Before 2008, I was in frequent touch with Abhinav because I also worked briefly with the sports scientist he was working with, and one day I asked him, and of course I would ask him a lot of questions, and he would gladly kind of mentor me. And one thing he said, so I think couple of months before Olympics, and I asked him, how's your training going, and all of that, and he said, Ronak, what my biggest challenge is? I have no challenge. My biggest challenge is I have no challenge. He said this to me in end of 2007 or early 2008, and I think it's been how many years, and I remember this statement. My biggest challenge is that I have no challenge. And he told me that I'm going to let you sleep over it. Let's chat tomorrow on what this means.
Yeah.
I couldn't figure out. And he said, everything is going so well. Everything is going so well that there is no challenge. There's nothing keeping me on my toes. And when everything, so I said, that's great, right? That's great that everything is going so well. He said, no, when everything is going well, I'm not paying attention, yet I'm getting all bullseyes. But this is not okay. You'd rather be slightly underprepared, like you feel slightly prepared than feeling absolutely prepared, because that will keep you on your toes, that will keep you focused.
Wow.
And I think it took me maybe 10 years to understand that statement.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is really something.
Yeah.
That's
why he is what he is.
So coming back to you, Ronak, I've noticed that you don't really display much of your trophies, etc. Because when I'd come over, I didn't see any of them, and I'm very curious to know the story behind this.
So both me and Hina, we don't believe in displaying our achievements and having the cabinet for trophies and medals at home and all, for two reasons. One is, I think professionally both of us are just so always into getting the technique right, that once we're able to perform well and we do well, that satisfaction for us is good enough. The medal is just like a bonus, ki mila to theek, nahi to kuch nahi, but we are very satisfied with our performance. So that is one. So the medal doesn't really mean that much to us. It's the performance, it's our effort that's what matters to us. It's like, if I just shot casually and end up winning the gold medal, I would not be able to look myself in the eye.
Correct.
But if I know I put in my all and that got me a good performance and I came 5th, 7th, whatever, doesn't matter. That is one. And second, I feel, my house is supposed to be my house where I am Ronak Pandit, the person, where you're Hina Sidhu, the person, or whether you are whoever, the person. Professionally, you may be whoever, whatever, on your field of play. Why? Yeah. In fact, even in the field of play, if you go there as so-and-so the champion, you're going to fall flat. You got to be humble. You got to be a student of the game at all times. And all your tags and all your achievements are for the world to celebrate. And for you, it's you the person. Now, imagine you're my friend, you come to my house and I'm trying to intimidate you or what, impress you with my medals and achievements. Yeah. Why? And if someone who gets impressed as a friend shouldn't be a friend in the first place. So there's also one, as I hear other people having similar thoughts, it just kind of validates our own.
Which other people have you heard who have similar thoughts?
Not from sports. So for example, just I hear Nitin and Nikhil Kamath a lot, and sometimes what happens is they also say that how do you stay grounded, being the
Yeah.
youngest billionaire and all those things?
Yeah.
I said we always ensure that there is someone around us who tells us we are wrong.
Yeah.
And so simple things like this. So
Yeah.
there's so many things and so many people from other walks of life you can learn very
Yeah.
very small but very important things. And like and like Rajkumar Hirani is now a very good friend. He's now our neighbor. And when we met him again, it's like just call me Raju, yaar. Like you're my friend, I am your friend. मैं क्या करता हूँ, तू क्या करता है, that's not important. So
Yeah.
so it's and I think there's a lot of successful people having a similar kind of outlook, that calm, just leave that in the office, come back home, you are the person, and it's just fun that ways.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and it's like then you also have celebrities. You'll have, say, Virat Kohli and Anushka Sharma saying that we want to give a normal life to our kids. Like for our
Yeah.
kid also, we want them to have a normal life there.
Yeah.
So how is that going to happen if they grow up? Oh, who my dad was and who my mom was. My dad is my dad. My mom is my mom. Period. So
Yeah.
why do you need to display all that at home?
That's a very great way of looking at it, and I mean, kudos to the way you and Hina are bringing Rhea up, and I'm sure she has a bright future ahead of her.
Yeah, that's
Would you like to talk a little bit about her and how you and Hina ensure that your fame and success does not kind of really erode her life in any way?
Yeah, we try to again, like all the things that we did as kids before we became whoever we became. So like just go out, play in the mud, be in the sand, and basically I think what achievement and what success that what we are using to improve Rhea's life is such that we are using our resources and our connect and our knowledge to expose her to as many things as possible in
Yeah.
this world, and then let her choose what she wants to do.
Does she shoot?
No, so she right now she's just 3.5, but even at 3.5, she swims. She goes, she does a little bit of horse riding now.
Wow.
Because we live on a golf course. So she looks at that and she says, "Hey, I want to play golf." She's not as tall as the smallest golf club also, but so it's like just exposing her to everything,
Yeah.
and then letting her choose. And whatever she chooses, we will then strive to get the best of that field for her. That is all we can do. But it's like because we've been shooters now. Our daughter also needs to be this great shooter. No. Let her choose. All that we as parents, the best we can do is expose her, give her this buffet of offering that life has, and then whatever she wants, we can just ensure that she gets the best of that.
That's such a beautiful thought, to have, Ronak. I'm sure also with your celebrity status in a way and your success, you must be chilling with a lot of athletes or other personalities around the world. I'm curious to know who some of these are. Like, give us a glimpse into the little more glamorous side of who Ronak Pandit is.
Hey, honestly, actually, because because I think I come from shooting and not football or cricket, so our lives are and also like just the nature of the sport has been such that we don't lead the typical glamorous lives. But I think yeah, it's like I said, sometimes we'll have Rajkumar Hirani just coming over for a casual meal, and we'll just be sitting in our pajamas and shorts and that, and just that. But what happens is when we go for competitions, like for the games, and then say whether it is whether there's PV Sindhu or there's Saina Nehwal, or you meet Rohan Bopanna or Leander Paes or whoever, at that time everyone meets each other as athletes of the Indian contingent. Nobody comes across as I am so and so from this kind of a
Yeah.
sport with that kind of fan following or whatever. So there, what ends up happening is, so we end up socializing in the dining hall of the Commonwealth Games or the Olympic Games.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because everyone lives in different cities of this country. Where we come together is during the Olympic Games or the Asian Games or the Commonwealth Games, and then in those dining halls, wearing our India jersey, we'll be chatting and exchanging our stories.
That sounds very heartwarming and wholesome.
Yeah,
I hope it actually is
it is. It is. Yeah.
in practice as well. Ronak, any closing notes that you'd like to say to our audience who've been with us till now?
I think almost everything has come out in our conversation, but I just feel that a lot of us are running a rat race or are just doing things for the heck of it because we are supposed to do it. Um, but I think it would do us a lot of good if we just paused, gave it a thought of what we are doing, why we are doing, and what do we need to do it better. Because the world has been running in a particular way, and that way, yeah, it's fine. We are surviving, but it can always be better. And if we don't pause to question what we are doing, and can we do it in a way which is better than what we are doing, till we don't do that, we're not going to improve. So you know what? So I would just like to say this, that the beauty of an athlete is they strive for 100%, that they strive for giving it their all, and the performance has to be 100%. So their training, the effort, focus, discipline, everything has to be 100%. What happens in life with, I'm not saying all, but again,
Yeah.
a lot of the people, what I see is that the chalta hai attitude.
Yeah.
What is that? It's like saying 35% के ऊपर मिला ना, पास हो गए ना, तो हो गया. So it's like, yeah, somebody is working at 40% efficiency, somebody is working at 60% efficiency, because that is good enough, चलता है. So उससे it's good enough. But if all of us in all walks of life, professionals, employees, corporates, athletes, whoever, everyone, if everyone just strives to do 100%, the best that they can be, the best that they can do every single day at every single job, that is what is going to make a difference, at least to us, our city, our country. And I think that is what we need to do to make this world great.
Thank you, Ronak. I think those are some great insights. Thank you so much for being here with us on the Bombay Founders Club talk show. It's been a privilege, and it's always a pleasure speaking with you, Ronak, and hope that this is just the start of a longer collaboration between you and Bombay Founders Club.
Oh yes, I definitely hope so, and it was a lot of fun. And I think you have a knack of making me remember some of the stories of my own life, which I had anyways forgotten. So it was great being here, Devash. It's an absolute pleasure spending time with you, and yeah, I look forward to a great association with BFC.
Thank you so much, Ronak. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye bye.